So this is 71. We did look at it Friday, but it was like a hit and run Friday lesson right before Special Olympics. So we're gonna pretend like we've not started it yet because I've got several that were out. We are focusing on area and circumference. You already learned area and circumference in middle school at some point, but I know that you've not been using those formulas since then. And it definitely is something that does get used on a regular basis in certain professions. So let's dive right in. We've got the area formula. There is only one formula for the area of a circle, and it is pi r squared. Pi is a symbol which represents a number. We're going to do a squiggly line because the number is infinite and there's no pattern. So like we can't even write it all the way out. When you are told to approximate pi, you're usually told to use 3.14. That's usually what you're told to use if they don't want you to push the pi button. On your calculator, there is a pi button. You have to hit, on the calculator, I'm going to write this, C-A-L-C. You have to hit second, and then I'm going to write pi, but it's actually this button. Looks like a carrot. I mean, not who's carrot. But anyways, it's called a carrot, but it looks like the roof of a house. That's the button you push to get pi. So, all right, let's talk area. Look what I'm standing on, right? You with me? Actually, there's a history behind this rug. I used to work at Northwest, and there was a girl that worked there in the English department. Her name was Ashley Holtzhauer, and I am Ashley Holcombe. And we were both tall, long, brown hair-ish, red. Mine's reddish, hers is brown. And we would get confused all the time, so we called ourselves twins. But anyways, she was leaving teaching, and she sent an email to the staff that said, I have this cheetah rug if anybody wants it. And have any of you ever been to Northwest High School? It is a long hallway, and then the classrooms spawn off of that long hallway. Very big, long hallway. And then they just you have like this hallway of small, small, small. Hers was on one end and mine was on the other, and y'all should have seen me. I was running down the hallway because when something's free for grabs, you better grab it because it's going to get taken. So I ran down the hallway to get the rug, and I've had it ever since. So anyways, this is an area rug, and it's called that because it covers a certain area in the floor, okay? Area of a circle is pi r squared. If I was talking about pizza, what part of the pizza would the area refer to? What? The dough. So I want you to come right here and write dough for that's the part of the pizza that area refers to. Now, circumference. For some reason, when anyone was dealing with circles, mathematicians said, you know what, it's just not enough to leave it at perimeter. Let's rename it something else. And they renamed everything that deals with a circle, and that would include perimeter. The perimeter is the distance around, but for some reason they call it circumference. What part of pizza would refer to perimeter? Distance around. Crust. I want you to write crust right here to help you visualize. Okay, so area is like how much dough do I need total, and then circumference means like how much crust is there total. Okay, big difference between the two. Y'all wake up. There's two formulas for circumference. There's 2 pi r, or there's a second formula. Does anyone know what vocab word we learned that is the same thing as if you take the radius and double it? diameter. If you take the radius and double it, you have actually found the diameter. So there's a second alternative formula for circumference. It's d pi. You can pick whichever one you want. I like to think smarter, not harder, so I usually pick the one that refers to the picture, or when we get to the bottom, the description. All right. Number 1 through number 8. You have to pay attention to the directions. Say, find the area for 1 through 4, find the circumference for 5 through 8. So what I did was here, I kind of blocked this off to say this is the area. And then here, block this off and say this is the circumference. All right. So 1 through 4 we're focusing on area, and 5 through 8 we're focusing on circumference. It's as simple as you look at the picture, you see what they gave you, you plug it in. Like that's it. I do want to level it up a little bit because this is a middle school standard if that's all we do. We are going to level it up by doing what's called in terms of pi. I'll point that out to you in a second, and there's a reason we're doing in terms of pi. You'll see when we get to the back. All right, so look at the picture. Ask yourself, is this a radius or a diameter? This is a good preview for that quiz. You know, you got to know your vocab words. Is that a radius or a diameter? Radius is from the center to the edge. So this is a radius. I'm going to put an R. And then now I'm going to remind myself I'm trying to find the area. There's only one formula for area. I will write it one time right here. I don't expect you to write it every time. So we're going to plug in R. So that's pi 12 squared. All right. In terms of pi, that phrase, in terms of pi, means you can see the pi symbol in your answer. It means that you never actually type the pi in the calculator. It means you can do this part in your head. You're just evaluating the numbers. What's 12 squared? 144. So 144, and then you write the pi, which means I can see the pi, and I'm going to draw an arrow, and I'm going to say in terms of pi. That, the way that I wrote that, 144 pi, it means in terms of pi. That is our leveling up aspect behind this worksheet, because that's going to come in handy when we get to the back of the paper. Now, if I wanted the actual answer rounded to the nearest, we're going to go to the nearest hundredth. There's 2 zeros in 100, so that means 2 decimal places. You would just go to your calculator and you would type 144 pi. 144. To get pi, you're going to push. My calculator shrunk. Let me make that calculator bigger. Y'all stay with me, please. There we go. All right, so we're going to type the pi symbol. Push second, and then it's this little button that looks like the roof of a house, and then you just hit enter. And we're going to go to the nearest hundred. So 452 point, if I'm going to the hundredth, then I check the thousandth number, so 0.39. 452.39. Okay, and now there's a nitpickiness that we have to also account for. We have to write the unit of measurement after it. It's meters, so we're going to write meters. Here's the nitpickiness. Is it just meters or is it meters squared? You might know. It's squared. The reason it's squared is because it was the area formula. Area is a two-dimensional measurement and it's length and width. Now you don't have a length and a width in the circle, but it's the same concept. If I wanted the area of this rug, I'd take the length, I'd multiply it by the width, and I would have the area, which means I've just measured two dimensions, which means I have to write squared at the end. But let me show you a safety net if you ever forget that. Look, which formula has squared? Area. If you used the area formula, then it has to have the squared. Like the formula will have the squared in it. Okay? So anytime we find circumference, we don't have to write the square. You'll be fine on number 3 because it's another radius. And I actually want to skip to 2 or come over here to 2. What's different in the picture on 2? Notice that this time the entire diameter is drawn and the number that they are giving me is right in the middle. That means that this is the diameter, not the radius. I'm trying to find the area, which means I absolutely need the radius. So what would the radius be? If the diameter is 18, then the radius would be 9. If you ever forget which one is the longer segment, just look at the length of the word. Diameter's longer word, right? It's also the longer segment. Radius is a shorter word, it's the shorter segment. So that's a nice little way to remember which one's like the big number, which one's the small number. And the relationship is there's 2 radii in a diameter. So you just divide it by 2. Okay? Alright, so then you would find it like normal. So we're finding the area. It's going to be pi r squared. In terms of pi, I would simply do 9 squared, and that's 81. Bring the pi down. Now, in terms of a decimal, I'd go to my calculator and I would type 81 pi. And we're going to go to the nearest hundred, so 254.47. 254.47. Do I write inches or inches squared? Squared. Because the formula had a squared. That's how you always know. Because the formula had a squared. Alright, I think you'll be fine on 3 and 4. Let's skip to circumference. So, number 5. Numbers 5 through 8, you have 2 choices of formulas to use. I would use the one based on the picture on what they give you. Number 5, what do they give me? Radius or diameter? That is a radius, so I'm going to pull the circumference formula, 2 pi r. Alright, we're going to plug it in. So 2 pi 7. In terms of pi, you would just multiply the 2 times the 7. So 14 pi. And then to get the decimal answer, you would go to your calculator and type 14 pi. So 43.98. Right? Y'all with me? I've run out of room. 43.98. Millimeters. Is it millimeters regular or millimeters squared? It's regular. Go back to the formula. There was nothing in there squared, so just leave it alone. Now, number 7, what do they give me in the picture? They give me the diameter, so let's think smarter, not harder here. let's use the circumference formula that has a d in it, and that would be d pi. And this is going to be so easy, you're going to feel like you're doing it wrong. When I go to write in terms of pi, because the diameter is 58, I would just plug in the 58, and it's already in terms of pi. Now I would need the decimal version, so I'd go to my calculator, and I would type 58 pi. (182.21). Yards. Alright, so those are straightforward. The rest of the sheet, numbers 9 through whatever the end is, are working backwards, which is again where we're leveling up. You know, the straightforward is more middle school standard, working backwards, and in terms of pi is high school standard. On Friday, we quickly wrote some steps for working backwards. You may not have written it down, so I hope you write it now. This first step, so I know we didn't write this. Working, did I just? I have to be careful how I write or the whole screen. All right, working backwards. The first step to working backwards is write formula. And you write the formula of whatever they give you. Like whichever one they're giving you, you write the formula. Step 2, plug in what you know. And step 3, solve. You write the formula, plug in what you know, then you solve. I would like you to circle what it asks you to find and underline what it gives you. It says find the diameter of a circle with a circumference 65.97. I'm looking for D. It gives me C. So go up here. We have 2 formulas for circumference. Which one would be smarter to use? It said find the diameter given the circumference. So which one should I use? Let's use d pi, because then all I have to do is get d by itself. So copy the formula, d pi. That is a must. You have to copy the formula. Copy the formula. Plug in what you know. I know the circumference is this decimal. I'm going to replace C with 65.97. I'm going to bring the right side down. And now you can see that you've just created an equation and you have one variable, and that's the variable you need by itself. What do I need to move to get D by itself? What's in the way? Pi's in the way. How's it attached to the D? Multiplication. So I undo that by dividing it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to divide by pi. That cancels. Looks weird, but it works. Then I'm going to go to the other side and divide by pi, and that's what I'm going to type in the calculator. 65.97 divided by pi. If we were rounding to the nearest hundredth, which is what we're doing on this whole paper, this 8 would bump this 9 to a 10 carrying the 1, which makes that a 10 carrying the 1, which makes it 21. Now that is not domino rounding. That is rounding to the nearest hundredth. It's just that the numbers are 9, and so then when they round, they become 10, and you have to carry the 1, okay? So don't think that that's a domino rounding. You don't ever want a domino round. So the diameter is 21. One of the things that I like about the working backwards problems, this was me as a kid in math, because there was a time where I was not good at math in middle school. I had a tutor. I was terrible. Okay, I wasn't terrible. I struggled getting there as fast as my friends did. It took me longer to get there because I had to see it. And my tutor made me show every step, which is when it started clicking. These problems I liked in school because I needed that confidence booster that I was doing it right without having to go ask the teacher. Working backwards problems, all you have to do is plug it back in, and then if you don't get 65.97, you know you've done it wrong. So plugging it back in, 21 pi, I'd go to my calculator and type 21 pi, takes 5 seconds, 65.97. That's what I started with. So if you're one of those people that likes a little confidence booster, plug it back in really quickly and you can confirm that you got it right. All right, let's go to the back. I'm only going to work the odds. Let's copy the formulas on the back at the top so we're not flipping back and forth. We got area, only one of them. Circumference, you have 2. All right, number 11, find the radius of a circle with a circumference of 35 pi yards. Circle what you want, underline what they give you. Circle what you are trying to find, underline what you're starting with. There's a phrase I need you to remember. It works in math, it also works in life and any other subject. Go to what you know. Okay, remember that phrase, it rhymes, it's easy. Go to what you know. At any given time when you're lost, confused, or not sure, always go to what you know and start from it. I know the circumference is 35 pi, so that's the formula I'm going to start with. Which circumference formula should I use since it's asking for the radius? The first one, 2 pi r. So I'm going to plug in 2 pi r, or not plug in, I'm going to write 2 pi r. I'm going to replace circumference with 35 pi. What looks different here? Do you notice that there's a pi on both sides? This is why we were learning in terms of pi on the front. 35 pi is in terms of pi, because I can see the pi symbol. If I'm trying to get radius by itself, I have 2 pi here that is in the way. But because there's a pi on both sides, if I was to come over here and divide by pi, and then come over to the left and divide by pi, it would cancel, right? So it ends up just kind of disappearing because it cancels out. So think of it this way. If you've got 2 kids and you give them both a piece of pie, then it's all good, right? So if there's a pi on both sides, this is an easy problem. The pi's cancel. And now we're just working with the numbers. So I need r by itself. What's in the way? 2. It's attached by multiplication, so I'd move it by division. 35 divided by 2, 17.5. And it did say find the radius, which means we're done.
Could you please send Adeline Woodbury to the front office for just a moment, please?
She's on her way.
Thank you.
I would like you to draw an arrow, and I would like you to make a note. Pi on both sides. Pi on both sides. Okay. Sometimes there's not a pi on both sides, which means in that case you would actually have to divide it. This one's nice, short, sweet, to the point because there's a pi on both sides.
So, it looks like you worked out both of the pies. How did you work out both of the pies?
Well, because you have a pi on both sides. So if I try to divide by this pi, it would cancel. And then to balance it, whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other. So it'd cancel this one too. All right, let's do 13. It says find the diameter given the area. All right, so we're given an area. We're looking for the diameter. We only have one formula for area, so we don't have a choice here. Area equals pi r squared. Area is 615.75. Copy the pi r squared. Do we have a pi on both sides? No. So this is not like the last problem. This means we actually have to divide the pi over. So we're going to move the pi, divide by pi, it cancels here, come over here, divide by pi. Go to your calculator, 615.75 divided by pi. Make sure you know how to type this in. $195.999. Now, rounded to the nearest hundredth, that would bump this to a 10, carry the 1, 10, carry the 1, so it's 196. So this is 196 equals r squared. How do I get r squared to be just r? We're going to square root both sides. So square root, and the square root of 196 is 14. Did it ask for the radius? It did not. It asked for the diameter, which means you're almost done. If the radius is 14, then the diameter would be 28. So I'm going to say times 2 because I need the diameter. Look at the difference between 11 and 13. 11 was in terms of pi, short, sweet, to the point. 13 was not. That means you have to divide that pi in the calculator. All right, let's go to 15. 15 through 20 is the exact same thing, finding something working backwards. The difference is you're not stopping at radius or diameter. You're actually taking it and you're plugging it into the other formula, okay? So it's just an additional step. All right, so let's don't confuse the two formulas because they're both going to be involved on all of these problems. Write the one you know, then write the one you need. So it says find the area given the circumference. So start with what you know. Go to what you know. I know the circumference. I'm going to just do 2 pi r. Because if I'm working on the area, then I absolutely need the radius, right? And then I'm going to find the area. It really helps to write them both down. But I like to start with the one that I'm working on first. All right, we're going to plug in what we know. We know the circumference is 26 pi, so C becomes 26 pi. All right, what do you notice? There's pi on both sides. So this is like if you have 2 kids and you give them both pi, it's going to be quiet for a while, right? It's going to be, everyone's in a good mood. So if I divide by this pi here, Then when I come over here and divide by the pi, they just both cancel. So I'm really just dividing by 2. So I get that the radius is 13. Now in the last couple of problems, that's where we would stop. This problem wants you to take that and plug it into the other formula, which is why it's helpful to have it written, because then you know, okay, wait, I'm not done. I got to plug 13 in here. So this is pi 13 squared. In terms of pi, I would just do 13 squared. Yeah.
I'm just always keeping up.
26 divided by 2.
Oh.
13 squared is 169. I'll bring the pi down. And then now I go to my calculator and type 169 pi. .93. Is that what y'all got? And it was feet squared. Because that formula had the squared, right? All right, I'm going to work 17 and 19, and then I'll let you finish. Find the circumference of a circle with an area of 201 square inches. Okay, circle what you need, underline what you know. I need the circumference, I know the area. So always start with what you know, then write what you need. Plug in what you know. I know A is 201.06. Bring down the rest. The goal is to get R squared to be just R, but there's a pi in the way, so what do I need to do? I need to divide by pi. Notice there's no pi on the other side, which means we actually have to do it this time. So I'm going to divide by the pi. It's going to cancel here. So 63.999, which rounds to what? 64. Bring down R squared. I need R squared to be just R, so square root it. What's the square root of 64? 8. This is why it's so helpful to have this next part already written down, because now I know, wait a minute, I'm not done. I've got to plug the 8 in here. In terms of pi, it'd be 2 times 8. This is why I love in terms of pi, because I can do it in my head. And then the actual decimal, I can't do it in my head. I have to go to my calculator, and I'm going to type 16 pi. And we're going to the nearest 100, so 50.27. And it was from the formula that has no square, which means no square here, it's just inches. Last one. We need to work it because something happens here that has not happened on any of the others. Let's go about it the same way we've been doing the others. Circle what you need, underline what you know, start with what you know, write what you need. All right, I'm going to plug 18.84 in place of C. 84. I need R by itself. What's in the way? Pi and 2. So both are in the way. This hasn't happened before. Like, if it did, it was in terms of pi. Look at number 15. 2 and pi were in the way, but there was a pi on both sides, so the pi's canceled. Is there a pi on both sides here? No, which means we have to actually work with the pi. There's two ways to do this. One way is if you're worried you're going to mess this up, then just move one thing at a time. So you could divide by pi, get your answer, then divide by 2. You'll just have an additional step. If you understand I need to move 2 pi, and that's 2 things I'm moving, then you could come over here and say, okay, I'm going to divide by 2 pi. So that cancels. I'm going to come over here and divide by 2 pi. Here's the problem. If you go to your calculator and you write 18.84 divided by 2 pi like this, like kind of written out in a linear fashion, it's going to give you this answer. Don't write that down because that's actually wrong. Would it make sense for the radius of a circle that only has a circumference crust around at 18, would it make sense for the radius to be 29.6? The radius of a circle is 29.6. Does that make sense for a circle to have only 18 in the crust? No, not at all. The radius is bigger than the crust, right? That doesn't make sense. Here's the reason why it's wrong. If you type it like this in the calculator, it's going to divide by 2, but then whatever that is, it's multiplying it by pi. So that's a problem. So if you're going to go about it this way, then I would encourage you to either use parentheses, 18.84 divided by parentheses 2 pi, because that's clustering it together, or I like to just use the fraction print. Alpha y equals fraction mode, and then I end up typing it in exactly how I wrote it on my paper. 18.84, arrow down, 2 pi. And you'll get the correct answer either way. So be careful there, okay? If you get an answer that is bigger than what you even started with, then you messed up. There's 3 ways to get around it. Either use parentheses, math print mode, or you can just move one thing at a time, type it in, one thing at a time, type it in. It's up to you. So we get 3. The radius is 3. That was the only, like, watch out. And actually, I'm going to draw an arrow right here, and I'm going to say, watch out. Oops. There we go. All right, plug 3 in. So pi 3 squared. I wrote a 9. In terms of pi, would be 9 pi. 9 pi in the calculator. 28.27. This is yards squared. All right, so I worked the odd. You need to have all the odd done because I just worked them. And then you need to finish the even. And this is a practice grade. This is a practice